I'm going to be looking at busting the myth that research participants are only motivated by incentives. So here at Vision Critical, we conduct millions of interviews a year across around 700 or so insight communities across the globe. And in almost none of these do we actually pay our members per survey. So instead, our communities tend to use either prize draws or have absolutely no extrinsic incentive for our members at all. Our community members are fairly rational, so when there are prize draws, they know that their chance of winning is fairly small, and the prizes themselves tend to be quite small as well, among the realms of £100 vouchers here and there once a month. So members can kind of learn to take the rewards as a gesture rather than as a bribe from ourselves or from the communities. So I've seen that, online research communities have got some really good examples of when other more intrinsic incentives are the main motivation for people to participate. And today I'm just going to talk to you about a couple of the research projects that I've been working quite closely on recently that don't use any financial or extrinsic reward at all in order to try and bust this myth wide open. So one of the communities that I currently work really quite closely with is the BBC research community Global Minds. It's their global insight community. It's probably one of the longest running communities here in the UK, and it's in its fourth year or so of research activities. It's around, I think it's around 10,000 or so members strong at the moment, so it's quite a large one for the UK here. We tend to contact our members of Global Minds around once or so a week with a new study or a new forum for them to take part in. And in absolutely none of these projects since the beginning of this insight community have we ever used any form of financial reward as an incentive for our members, but we still see a really strong response from our members on all of the activities that we undertake. Instead, our members are given updates on how their input's being used so they can actually see the difference that their research has made. For example, a really good example of this is during the rebrand of the BBC a couple of years ago. Our members were asked for their opinions on the format of some of the new features that were being made available. And a few months after these activities took place, they could actually see on TV and online how this had been used. So I think it's still live today, actually. The ticker tape that runs across the bottom of the news screen, for example, on the BBC News channel, BBC World News channel, was actually chosen by the Global Mind members, and they can actually see this as an action that has taken place as part of their input on the research community. Importantly as well, this community's been running for 4 years. We've never used incentives on this community, so our members don't expect them. It's pretty difficult for members to miss what they've never had, or indeed what they've never actually been offered. So instead, they've had to learn to develop a different kind of motivation behind their participation through this. Of course, I'm aware that brand loyalty plays quite a strong part in the participation on this BBC community. It's a fairly major household name both in the UK and across the globe. So I'm going to talk to you a little about a slightly different type of community that I work on as well. Exterior Media, who own a large amount of the outdoor advertising across the UK here, currently run a community called Workshop Play. So this aims at engaging an urban audience and has really quite strong levels of interest and contribution from its members. Again, it's around 10,000 or so strong at the moment. However, I don't really think it's unfair to say that a large chunk of those on the community are probably not even aware of who Exterior Media are or what they do. Whilst this community does offer incentives of small prizes to its members, we've found that this isn't really their sole motivation. We actually ran a satisfaction project on the community a couple of months ago, and in the results of this, it was really quite noticeable that, yes, whilst these prizes are brought up as a point of satisfaction among members, it's actually the feedback and the feeling that their input is being valued by the company the members told us they crave more of. So whilst the prizes are considered a nice to have, it's really not the sole motivation for the vast majority of those taking part. I suppose this makes sense, as everyone has different motivations. If you choose to organise a project around only one motivation, around incentives, it's really not the best way forward for targeting as large an audience as possible. So I've spoken to you really briefly just about a couple of the projects that I'm working on to try and prove that incentives aren't really the sole motivation for research participation, particularly within insight communities. And I just wanted to kind of break it down and leave you with 3 main points that I hope you can take away from this, really. Firstly, different people are motivated in different ways, so you've got to try and reward them in different ways as well. For example, through praise, through feedback, information, not just extrinsic and financial incentives. Secondly, if you start by paying people, you're setting their expectations right from the off, and you're and you're not really trying hard enough to make your participants want you. And finally, if you do use extrinsic incentives, make sure that you use it as a gift or as a thank you rather than as a payment. I always think it's best to remember to ask yourself, you know, what would you feel happier receiving from a friend, a surprise gift or some hard cold cash? Ultimately, thinking incentives to be the sole motivation of many research participants is a fairly narrow-minded view of research professionals, but we do it, and in organising our projects around them, as we tend to do, we're actually risking making this myth a truth. Thank you.